hitting a double or triple letter a lot of the time and scoring well. Mack doesn't seem to have any outstanding options with the X here. He can just play PIX through the I and jive, or he can hold on to it for next turn and make a play like Kobo, KOBO, underneath jive, forming JO. Kobo would score 29. Pix would score.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he just, chooses to play off the K first. The X can be quite versatile. The K, on the other hand, I personally am not a huge fan of the letter. I try to get rid of it as soon as I see it on my rack. I don't know about you, Mac, but I do have my own preferences, my own special favorite power tiles. And this is what they really are, the K, X, J, Q, Z. As much as we love these tiles because they give us so many points, we don't want to hold on to them for too long, because they can be detrimental to our chances of bingoing or using all 7 tiles on our rack.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always a tough decision. Do I hold on to these and try and cash them later if I can't cash them now, at the sacrifice of, the chances for me to bingo? Or do I just go ahead and cash them in now and try to bingo as soon as possible? I think in Mack's situation here, Kobo sets up his X. It allows for many, many different draws that will allow him to underlap the X under Kobo next turn for a good 40 or 45 point play.
Right.
So to me,
he plays Kobo making JO. Yes, the first O in Kobo is a great spot for that X, which he can be quite sure is not going to be used up with other. Well, it could be used up by another F or another H, but it's not too bad.
Yeah. Mac is actually going to go with picks here, and the more I look at this play, the more it makes some sense why he's choosing to do that. This board is very tight unless your opponent has an S now. It's tough to score some points. Maybe there's a possibility for jiver, jive, jivey, but picks otherwise keeps things nice and tight. Now we know that Kenneth does have not just an S, but also a 7-letter bingo on his rack. So Mack's play maybe looks like it's going to backfire on him here, but you can't know what your opponent has or what they're going to do. You're just playing the odds. Mack playing the odds and losing in this situation, as Ken immediately finding and playing Scootage, or I'm not sure how you say that word, but the only NWL 7. Yeah, big points for Ken. And he's got to be excited to take an early lead on the highest rated player in
This
North
is
America.
A great find. I mean, anyone who studies their words knows that, it's quite instantaneous in the moment when you're in the game. You see a word and you have them placed, you have your letters placed alphabetically. You're more likely to recognize the patterns that you've been studying if you've been studying 7 or 8 letter words in an alphabetical order. So this is instantaneous for Kenneth. He had those tiles arranged. He had the bingo down almost immediately. I do think that Mac could have done Kobo just to set up his X. I think it would have been, could have been quite far-sighted, but Pick's not a bad move. And Scootage, Scuttage, however you pronounce it, another fantastic find.
Yeah. Great job by Ken. You've got to find your high probability and medium probability bingos in order to be an expert level player. So that's a play he has to make to contend in Division 1, but one that he absolutely does make. And now,
so what do we mean when we say, high or medium probability words? We should probably talk a little bit to that for our viewers here. If anyone here is new to the game or new to how we play competitive Scrabble, when Matt is talking about high probability or medium probability words, these are words that we can study by their probability. What is the frequency of these tiles in the bag? So we have 100 tiles in the bag, 2 of them are blanks, and we know how much of, each tile is in the bag. And we have a software that a lot of people use, which is called Ziziva. And we can use that to calculate which of the words, 7-letter or 8-letter words, we're most likely to see first and foremost. And a lot of people do study by probability. They study in terms of the words that they are more likely to see before others. So low probability words are unlikely to show up on your rack, which is why a lot of people will study 1 to 100 probability and then go on and so forth.
Yeah. So I'll check exactly where Scootage is on that probability, because I think it's reasonably high up there. It looks like about 7,000 out of the roughly 25 or 30,000 7-letter words. So medium probability is, I think, where many players would categorize that one. But most of these expert level players you're going to see in Division 1 have studied, if not all the 7s, at least probably the top third. about the top 10,000 or so. Mack had a pretty interesting decision there. I liked the play of rebook. The only problem with rebook, it's through that E in Scoutage, and it sets up potentials for huge overlapping plays on a triple word. So I think Mack may be playing a little more conservatively here with Brank. He's costing himself some leave, but scoring a little bit more now and not opening up a spot for Kenneth to score very well next turn.
I think it could also be, you know, like a very good strategic decision if Mack is already, you know, confident that his word knowledge is perhaps more or, you know, greater than Kenneth's. Then with a board that is more controlled, with a board that is more blocked and doesn't allow for these overlaps, he can be a bit more confident that he's going to find perhaps more plays to play.
Yeah, definitely an interesting decision there. Mack definitely probably aware that he's the favorite in this game in a vacuum simply because he is the best player in North America. Not a knock on Ken by any means, but you have to play this way if you're, if you're Mack.
But let's not forget the variant that is in the game of Scrabble. I mean, Mack played in World Cup, and the World Cup was quite an experience for a lot of top players. Top seeds did not actually end up winning first place. The variation brings in so much interest and I think intrigue to the game of Scrabble, which is why watching these games is so fun again and again. Because even the best of the best can draw the worst of tiles or can somehow make a mistake, and then the games just go very differently.
Absolutely. This is a really interesting decision by Ken. I'm not sure I agree with this play very much. Deegiot. He's gotten many options. Almost all of the good ones hit that same spot, making jived, but he electing to play GED, which takes a front A, aged obviously, and holding 3 vowels and 1 consonant, which is unstable. I'd much prefer a play of guide, GIED.
GIED, yes.
Scores the same, but gets rid of 1 more vowel, which, I'd like to do. Now, maybe Ken knows something we don't because he picks up the really nice ST blank into that. He'll be bullying again, or bingoing again next turn. So maybe I should stop talking because Ken clearly knows something I don't.
He knows exactly what he's picking up next time.
For sure. Hopping over to Mack's turn, he has what I see as what looks like a great play, Phlox, PHLOX, to the X in picks, making JO as well. That's going to be very high scoring on this turn for him. I'm not sure what else there is to think about here, honestly.
I do think the Phlox is a really good option, but I think I would like Boho a little bit more just because Mack is slightly behind. I feel like now would not be a bad idea for him to open up the board just a little bit more. Though I guess Boho would block that floating E. So what do we mean by floating E? It means that there's a tile on the board that someone can play through. Oh, and he goes with Honor, which is also another defensive kind of a play. It blocks all of these floaters, except, of course, ER is a great, it's a great 2 tiles to have on the board for you to end 7 tiles in. You could actually make 9-letter words that end in ER.
Yeah, and I mean, Scoutage does take a back S, so Honor, in a way, keeps that spot open for Mack to be able to bingo down later on in this game. Now, he's not down a ton right now, but he is down a marginal amount, and you have to try to keep things open. I do think Honor is a cool play, though it's going to backfire again on him, as Ken is going to beat him to bingoing in that spot.
Right.
Ken actually with an interesting decision, do I bingo in the Scoutage's spot on that triple word for 82, or do I score slightly more at the expense of leaving that hook open for Mack? He can also bingo down from the J and jived, scoring 87. He's got 2 different options there. So he's got an interesting decision for sure. Do I score additional points or kind of start blocking this board up with a lower scoring bingo, but the lead?
What would you do, Matt, knowing that the difference? Oh, okay. We see the bingo going down on the triple. It's going to score about 82, I believe. What would you do, Matt, if the difference is 5 points?
I would do what Ken's doing here. Yeah, I would certainly bingo where Ken is bingoing. I would not bingo how Ken is bingoing. I don't like how toilets, which I believe is what this word is going to end up being, puts that I next to a triple letter square. I mean, QAT or some play can come down for an absolute killer score. There's a potential for big,
Perhaps
big plays down, like the double word
tiptoes.
down to the triple letter.
Right.
Yeah,
Perhaps
perhaps
tiptoes would be
tiptoes or
better
toddies or
here.
a number of other. The anagram of toilets, lychates, also could go in the same spot. So perhaps he's trying to keep scoring spots available, but I wouldn't have done that. I'm already ahead now by 100 points on a board that I'm starting to constrict. I wouldn't have done that. But
That said,
regardless,
I
this
mean,
is
I
a
do
decision Ken
think,
makes.
right.
Go ahead.
I do think that the 5 points is too much to give up. I think, it would be a better idea for Ken to have played, Joltiest or Jettison perhaps from the J, because I think those 5 points are just way too much to give up at this point. You have the lead, you want to keep the lead.
Yeah. Mac now has a bingo on his rack, and it does actually fit on the board in 2 different spots. So maybe he's thinking now, which spot do I want to play it in? But his bingo is parolee, P-A-R-O-L-E-E, another what we said high probability bingo, and it plays in 2 spots on top of GED, making age, which is what we were talking about. Where Ken is opening the board, making that play, and now Mac can take advantage. He can also play it vertically, making BE alongside Brank. On top with aged is 78. In the other spot is 74. I'm sure Max sees this word. It's just a matter of, I guess,
Where
deciding
he's going to place it.
play it in.
Right. Because on when we look at the board and what the board will look like once parolee goes down, it's a lot more controlled, again, a lot more defensive if it goes down vertically, making BE in Brank, as opposed to parolee that makes aged. I guess Matt will have to make that decision again, which is, what do I want to do with the state of the board? Because he gets to decide at this point what he wants to do. I do believe that it might not be a bad idea to, again, just go for the points. I know Mac is, he prefers keeping this board controlled, as we can see the parolee going down vertically. But I do think, take the points, and there's always going to be at least one triple open. You can have the overlap on either side, and there's still the Q out. 7 tiles that he draws again. He's a favorite to hit the Q.
Yeah, a tough decision for Mac there. I think ultimately either one has merit. This is one of those you could debate all day. You could run computer simulations, but at the end of the day, I think stylistic decision is part of Scrabble, and
Exactly.
that's what we have here.
Exactly.
So
But this
either
gives
play makes.
right. And this gives Ken an opportunity to have some great overlaps. He can just do Yage, Y-A-G-E, down the side of parolee now for a whopping 30 points.
Yeah, I mean, either play would give back big opportunities for Ken. It's just a matter of which one do you think is more likely to get hit. Oh man, Ken's got a cool turn here as well. So this board now very tight, save 1 spot, the back hook of an S on Brank, and Ken picked up an S. So it's huge for Ken now that he can control this board. Only 1 S is unseen to him. There's 4 S's in the game. 2 are on the board. 1 is on his rack. So he's got a lot of control to shape this board, but he's also got an incredible play. JG's, Jaygees, down from that J. It's going to score 45, significantly more than YAGE, but it's going to burn that S and open up this board, give Mac more opportunities to open a board in a game where he's already down 23 points and it is not his turn. So a tough decision here. I think I slightly prefer Yage, YAGE, hold that S for later on, but I could see merit for either one of those. JG is also quite tough to spot. So I'm not sure Ken would see it. I'm not sure I would think to look in that spot in this circumstance either.
The J does seem quite claustrophobic. The J and the X over there, it does become a little tougher to see words going down from there. I believe when you see power tiles on the board, it can be difficult to get your mindset out of, okay, I know the 3s, I know the 4s that come with the JQXZ, and then thinking of longer words like JG's here, which is 7-letter word, can be tough. I do think JG's, I actually don't know how to pronounce these words. I think it would be a perfectly fine play. It's 45 points. It keeps an eye. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, getting your score and moving on. But of course, Ken is going to think this through, and he's going to make, a decision that he thinks works well here. And that, again, like you said, that back hook for bank is very notable here. With one blank and one S unseen, this S can be quite useful on this board.
Yeah, no, tough decision for sure. It looked like Ken may be considering none of these options. He set up GEY right now, which I believe he'd play alongside Paroli, making PE and AY. Ken has already
Oh,
showed us
interesting.
once that he prefers to hold vowels a little more than other players and programs tend to. So maybe he sees that
Sounds like a
AIST.
Collins player.
Right, right.
I was
Maybe
gonna say.
the SI leave and he's optimistic by it. I see that and I want to vomit. But to each their own. Last time he held 3 vowels and 1 consonant, he bingoed out of it. So we'll see what he
That's
decides to do
true.
here.
I mean, in that case, perhaps just AYE, making PAAY and RET might not be a bad move. I know the G isn't as friendly, but if you will play there, then perhaps Yage or AYE might be better than GEY, keeping such a vowel heavy rack. I probably don't know, probably wouldn't prefer to keep AEIS, I don't think.
Yeah, no, tricky turn for sure. And again, every player has their own style. I also want to say while we're here, it is incredibly hard to play on stream. The mind games get, they go crazy in your head. People are watching live. There's a chat talking about what you can do. People with anagrammars finding the bingos. It's really tough, and players tend to make some uncharacteristic mistakes while they're up here. I think a player like Ken would make a play like YAGE most of the time, but sometimes you're just blind to stuff when you're on the stream and you have so much else to worry about.
I completely agree. I don't prefer to play on stream. If I can get away with playing on stream, I will not play on stream because I don't think that scrutiny is very helpful when you're in the game. The Scrabble, as much as being a game of words and anagramming and strategy, is also a game of your mind. It's about like how well you can retain your posture, your composure, and these are very stressful situations. So I am not surprised at all to see, AYE going down. I wouldn't have been surprised to see YAGE go down either. These are really good moves. These are moves that are, keeping that S, trying to make sure that there's still a chance for Ken to hit ranks, especially, now that he knows that he holds it. He knows that he has the opportunity.
Yeah, and that G could be instrumental in helping him shut down this board later too. He's not ahead by enough that he needs to shut down the board just yet, but if he gets 1 or 2 more big plays as Matt kind of fights through some bad racks, well, by all
So
means, he might
yeah,
be shutting down this board very quickly, and the G is a good way to do that. C or V are the best tiles for closing, but G is certainly up there. And speaking of bad
yeah.
racks, Mac has one of them right now. Lots of Roman numerals there. LCVIU.
Lots of Roman numerals. That's a good one. I haven't heard
Yeah.
that one.
Roman numerals are almost never good to have a bunch of on your rack. You'd rather have E's and S's and R's instead of yeah. So Mac, I'm not seeing any reasonable scoring options for him.
I don't think there's much you can do to score here. I think the it's just a matter of clearing, his the mess that is his rack right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like VIRL come down. I mean, this is really such a yucky looking rack. I mean, what do you even do here?
It looks like Mac
Perhaps
is
Virl to
talking
the
about Clivia, CLIVIA to the A. It doesn't score well, 12 points, but nothing scores
keeping
well.
you are. But it does open the board. So I mean, he does have the right idea there that, he's behind just enough. He's behind by 50. He can either, get a bingo, or he can have 2 high scoring turns, something in the 40s or 30s. He can still catch up. It's not a bad idea, I think, for him to get Clivia down then. He does have to be a little bit more, I guess, aggressive here.
Yeah, a play like Ervil, ERVIL down from the ER, or Vil, same 3 letters to the L in Paroli. They score 16 or 15 are also reasonable options. CIRU, none of those tiles are all that great, but some slight synergy between those letters.
I agree.
So you could consider that. But Mac, I think, trying to open things up and really just fight through as many of these bad tiles as he can, as fast as he can. Clivia comes down, makes a lot of sense, doesn't score that well, but hey, what can you do when you've drawn garbage?
Right. you just try to clear out your rack as much as you can. Some people will, like if you are a newer player, you might ask, why is he not just exchanging here? A lot of players here will consider the value of exchanging rough tiles versus the points that you can get from playing through a rack and keeping whatever dreck that you do keep. So it really is it's a consideration of what we call equity. It is the consideration of, hey, if I do exchange my tiles and I keep one or two of these, what would that value equal to versus if I were to play a suboptimal low scoring play and keep something that's maybe not the best but still workable, what would that equal out to? And that really is the distinction between that decision making process, where do you choose to exchange or do you choose to play through?
Yeah, and you'll definitely see different players have different approaches. Some players a little more eager to exchange. I know Ori Swift kind of famously almost never exchanges. So we'll see different players tolerate different amounts of dreck and different low-scoring plays to work their way out. But I think in that situation, Mac is absolutely correct that you need to score some points. You are, as a leave, is not so bad that it warrants scoring 0 for a turn when you can score 12 and hold it instead. Oh man, Ken has an interesting turn, and we're aware that the clocks are not working right now. Thanks for pointing that out in chat. We'll get them up as soon as we can. But Ken's got an interesting turn, ageism in 2 different spots.
Oh, he had that set up too.
Did, yeah. So either of those will play with Branks, and yet I agree with what he's doing here, not taking the hook. Every time Mac plays a tile, it's another chance for him to draw that last blank or that last S and take that spot.
Right.
But unless you've got a
Perhaps,
knockout play, leave it open. Leave it open for
right.
yourself.
Perhaps MIM then wouldn't have been a bad idea. MIM making GI and FEM. Perhaps that would have been okay here. But MM is also definitely makes sense. I like it.
Yeah, once again, Ken electing to hold more vowels than consonants, which something, again, that just makes my skin crawl. That's my personal style. Especially when 19 of the 42 unseen tiles to him are vowels. You're just asking for trouble. He dodges it here. He's able to pick up 2 more consonants, but I definitely agree. I liked MIM as a play there, MIM over MM. I also liked maybe miasm, MIASM.
Oh, that's a nice find.
But I'm not super eager to open the board with a play like that. I liked MIM. I think that was a standout. But Ken, again, knows something we don't and picks up the 2.
Yeah, he just keeps picking up the continents when it's as unlikely as it could be. Now, I think Mac is an interesting option here. He could attempt to play raw and aged off his rack, I think, because what that would do is that would open up the triple. It is dangerous, though, of course, because Ken can very, very easily take that spot. But it's definitely a very aggressive move that he could make. I don't think it's a good idea just because there are 5 E's unseen to him already. He could also perhaps do something similar to, TWA, perhaps, just TWA, making TRET, Tret, WO, and AL. These are all very strange words, I know, but these are big dictionaries that we're working with. And if you are new to Scrabble, do not worry. The words come to you over time as you play. You study, you play, you get in the groove of things, and then it becomes second nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching at home and new to the game yourself, don't worry that you don't know these words. Scrabble has multiple divisions at almost a tournament, and you would likely start in the beginner division and slowly work your way up. These are some of the top experts, and you would definitely be insulated from these plays, not expected to know these words, especially not as you begin to approach the game. And that's fine. What a crazy turn for Mac as he sits here with garbage on his rack again.
Really,
Twa scores 27. I really like that. I really don't like RRUY as a leave, and yet what else can you do? I don't like almost any of these aged plays up top. I don't like making that spot go away. I don't like
it might be possible for him to, instead of playing raw, play YURTA, Yurta, instead, because I think that is hopefully going to open 2 triples for him. So even if Ken does end up taking one of the triples, like the one on the H column, it might be possible for him to eventually hit the triple on the A column, the top left. It's dangerous. It's very aggressive, but Trois is it's such a defensive move. I mean, he's just behind enough, and I know he just needs to score here. But what is he keeping? You know, like we have to be very cognizant of that. What are the tiles that he's keeping, and how is he going to score next?
Yeah, you have to think about next turn. You also have to be looking at the unseen pool, which looks kind of strange to Mac. There's a lot of vowels: A, like a lot of vowels staring at you right now.
Definitely.
And so holding on to one scoring tile is probably something you might want to consider. Or you want to hold on to a leave that will bingo if you pick up some of those vowels. And the I's don't go super well into RRTU or some of these other leaves. So lots for Mac to think about here, and a good job by Mac spending a lot of time on what is going to be a pivotal turn. I'm inclined to score some points here. I don't like opening the board if I'm holding garbage. And if I make a play like Yurta or Trois or Ra or something, anything that plays GED, I'm still not holding super well. I don't want to open up a scoring spot when I don't think I'm going to be able to score there next turn. So I'm inclined
That's
to
fair.
Trois or maybe KRAY from the K in Brink.
Oh, I like that.
WU is not the best leave. WU infamously bad together. And yet, if I'm going to pick up some vowels into WU, maybe it'll be okay. I'm not opening any new scoring spots for Ken. I kind of like Trois, or if not Trois, then Cray. I'd prefer not to open until I can get my rack a little bit more stable.
I do feel like Yurta might not be the worst idea here, just because I think he's likely to draw into things that he can. Well, I think he's likely to draw into things that he can use either of the triples for. But that said, I think Trois just looks safer. And as we can see, as his time dwindles, Mac is making these considerations. I mean, we still have 40 unseen tiles for Mac, which means that there's 33 tiles in the bag, and he's already down to 9 minutes. You know, he's the end game might become quite crucial here if he keeps scoring and he gets to a point where he's just in, you know, he's within catching up range.
Yeah, you always have to score. He's already in a situation or close to one where he feels like he needs a bingo to win. If you don't score now, you're going to need a bingo plus to win. So exchanging, ART is a good stable leave finally, but exchanging scores 0. You have to keep putting some pressure on Ken, or else Ken can really sacrifice points and shut down the board. Really tough for Mac. I like keeping.
Oh, he exchanges.
He does exchange. Very interesting. Okay, maybe he feels there's just not enough scoring opportunities for Ken in the absence of that S on Branks. And he feels, hey, you know what? I can take a turn off and really try to draw that S. I'm also curious about the decision to trade 4 when these S's and blanks are so pivotal. Maybe you want to turn over additional tiles. When there are L's in the bag, I think I would have thrown that A back. And I mean, now I can see what he's drawn. Yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, there are so many vowels unseen. Oh, what do you think? Do you think you would have exchanged here? I feel like I would have tried to play through this rack. I don't know. How about you?
I absolutely would not have. Now, I'm not Mack Meller. I'll preface by saying that. He is the highest rated player in North America for a reason, at home for a reason. And yet, I don't think I would have exchanged there. Very curious decision, and one I'm sure he will talk about. Mac has his own YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, search him up. He's got some great content, but definitely a turn. I'm curious to hear his thoughts on. Maybe we can grab him sometime and hear him and his thoughts on that.
That would be interesting. And now we see Ken go down with black quite quickly. That's, I think, a perfectly fine move. Keep EFIS. That's fine, I think, just he's holding on to at least 2 consonants. This is a very, again, vowel-heavy rack. And back to Mac, who is stuck with a lot of vowels.
Yeah. So now we've got to figure out a way to play through these vowels, got to figure out a way to score enough that we can stay in the game. Definitely some choices for him to make. Highest scoring option is Rioja, Rioja, through the J and jived again.
That's an interesting spot.
It's a really interesting spot. It's hard to see, and it kind of knocks out the aged hook. So maybe
Right.
not something you want to think about. If you want to blow this board open, erotica through the sea is a great way to do that, as it sets up a line for you to play bingos and maybe even overlap on top. But more that floating A at the bottom allows a 7-letter bingo to come down as long as you can front hook the A. So a good way to score erotica's 22, holds an O, which
Oh,
is not so good, but
he
opens
sees
a board.
Ryoja.
Yeah, he does see it. He plays it. 25 points in EOT. At this point, I think you have to take a little bit of a risk and see if you can draw. Even though EOT is not the best leave, you just got to see what you can do out of it.
Right. If there's anyone who's going to see Ryoja, by the way, it's going to be Mack Meller. I mean, that is
Absolutely.
a fantastic overlap. That can be kind of hard to see, but it comes down quite quickly. I mean, I think he was just seeing it. It was just there.
He is so low on time. I know we've lost our timer again, but Mac was under 8 minutes as of last turn, so he's got to try to make a few turns quickly so he can spend that time thinking later on.
And now for Ken. Ken is he's in a pretty good position right now. He is at, I believe, 286 points, and he could just fish off 2 tiles if he wanted. He could just fish off FI and hope to draw into a bingo next time.
Yeah, I definitely just fishing, and by fishing we mean making a short play, 1 or maybe 2 tiles at max for a fish, and holding very, very stable leaves on your rack that are very likely to score or hit a bingo next turn. EINRS. Most professional Scrabble players or semi-professional Scrabble players will lick their chops when you see that. That is very
I like
stable.
that
Very
imagery.
likely to bingo next turn. Gotta be over 50%. Right. So I think definitely just dropping the FI is what anybody's
And
looking to
it
do
blocks
here. And the highest
yeah.
rated or highest scoring way to do that is exactly this.
Blocks that C
It
quite
partially obstructs the
effectively.
C2,
Yeah.
which, yeah, no, good play, good idea. And if Ken hits a bingo here, this game is all but over as he's knocked off the top seed in round 1. You never want to count out Mack Meller, of course, but his odds are getting bleaker and bleaker with every bad consecutive draw he pulls.
It really, yeah. I think it's so interesting the way that Scrabble tournaments and these games can just change in an instant. One bad rack, and depending on how you play it, how you play through that pivotal rack, your entire game is decided for you. I mean, I have had these moments myself in tournaments where I've been like, okay, I should or shouldn't exchange, and if you make the wrong decision, that's it. Your entire game is now affected. Your entire next 5 moves are just, they're gone.
Hindsight's always 2020, right? But you have those games where you decide I'm not going to exchange, and then you just fight through for 5 additional turns and never really balance the rack. You have other games where you decide to exchange and you just never end up scoring enough, or you draw another bad rack out of the exchange and you scored 0. So hindsight's always 2020. You don't know what you're going to draw, but all of Scrabble is trying to harness that randomness and turn it in your favor. And at this point, Mac is going to need a lot of randomness in his favor to pull this one out.
Right. I wonder if he's okay. So outro, he does outro. I wonder if he's trying to think. I wonder if maybe outroot wouldn't have been slightly better, just to just go for that blank, just be like, okay, I have to turn over more tiles. But I think outro is fine here. He's clearing up that direct.
Yeah, outro, nice play. It sets up another bingo line and one. I mean, Ken has just fished, so Mac almost has to pray that he hasn't drawn a bingo that will fit on top of outro.
Right.
He's correct in that prayer. But you have to take a shot. And this is one where you could get smacked for 90, but you're going to lose anyway unless you make a play.
Oh, wow. Ken plays immediately. He just plays off that N.
Wow.
I thought he would get rid of just maybe another E, perhaps. Wow. Okay. Usually when we're fishing, we try to keep our fishes slightly higher scoring, just slightly. But wow, that was very quick.
Maybe Ken sees Mac low on time. We don't have the clocks or the scores right now. I'm sure our production team is scrambling as fast as they can to get those put back together. But I think you have to score more if you're Ken there. Now Mac can bingo with the blank spot. He can bingo down from the C, and he can take the lead. I show after no 307 to 243 in Ken's favor. I would play a little bit longer. I'd play something like NINE. You have to address the spot. Sure, I get it. But you want to score a little bit in the process. So, wow, very curious.
Exactly.
And the fact that it happened so fast is what's extra baffling to me, especially as
So,
EEINRS is not all that stable, as it misses with almost any vowel draw except an E.
and let's not forget that Mac just played a word that is not valid. That is CUDDED, is a phony word. And he has drawn his tiles, which means Mac was not put on hold. Now, players, when they see their opponent make a play, have the opportunity to say hold, during which time they can consider whether or not they want to challenge a word. That hold is on this player's time. And this is NWL, which means they are playing double challenge, I believe. Challenging words is a little bit more complicated here and a little bit more risky than it is in the columns divisions, which we'll see for the next 3 games. So, Matt, do you want to take the time to tell them how double challenge works?
Yeah, real quickly, I want to point out that Ken has a bingo on his rack. I won't spoil it yet if y'all at home want to try to look for it. It's a toughie, but a high prob one as well. So double challenge is what we play typically in NWL tournaments in North America. Double challenge. If I challenge your word and it is a word, I lose my turn. If it's not a word, you take it off and you lose your turn. So when there is a challenge, somebody will lose a turn. It's a huge deal. In CSW, they tend to play 5-point challenge most frequently. So you challenge a word, look it up. If it is valid, you don't lose your turn, but you give your opponent 5 additional points. It just adds 5 to the score. We call it giving them a nickel. So it's a lot less to challenge in CSW, and there's almost no incentive to play phonies in CSW because people throw a nickel at almost anything they don't know or that looks strange. We see it happen all the time. But in TWL or NWL, challenging work or phonying rather works. Playing garbage words works because it is so hard, especially in Ken's position, to challenge. He can't lose a turn now. Then Matt can make a big play and get right back in the game. So
Exactly.
I'm
You have
sure
to be
Matt
100% sure when you're challenging. You have to be 100% sure. You have to be like, okay, I know my words, and the incentive is completely different. That said, double challenge can be quite prohibitive for newer players. So for these players, there have been suggestions that perhaps the penalty should be 5-point, and that Collins, in fact, should have 10-point challenge. Maybe change how these penalties work. But right now, we have what we have. This is double challenge. This is the best of the best. These are titans in the game. They know their words. And Ken is sitting on a bingo that Chad has rightly pointed out, that if he does not spot, then he will be scoring minimal points. He will be scoring 10 to 15 points, which is not what he wants to do right now as Mac slowly creeps up.
Yeah, no. I mean, the bingo is in Dorsey, INDORSEE. It opens a triple triple with an I in the 6th spot. A triple triple is an incredibly high scoring play in Scrabble that hits 2 triple word squares at once. Because you need 8 tiles to hit both of them, these are almost always bingos, which adds an additional 50 after you do the 9 times bonus. That is something Ken definitely doesn't want to give up, especially on stream. And if Mac draws one, he will certainly see it. So I don't know that Ken sees in Dorsey. I haven't seen anything from his rack that would indicate that he has seen it. But even if he sees it, it's a tough one to pull the trigger on. It's game over unless Mac triple triples. Whereas some of these other plays, if you just drop an OE somewhere and bingo next turn, I think you're actually a little more likely to win this game. So tricky turn for Ken. I would be sitting there shaking my head over and over. And honestly, depending on my mood, I would either still play in Dorsey and cross my fingers and pray that you don't triple triple on me, or I would drop an OE somewhere. That's what Ken's going to do, VOE. We'll be curious to know if he saw it and forwent it or did not see it at all. That's one of the tougher high prob 8s to see. I know I struggle with that one.
It's so many
so
vowels.
draws,
It feels almost like there's no way something can be there.
Right. But we'll see. I do want to point out as well that the Q is still unseen in this game and could be rather obstructive or could be great. QI and GI would be a great option for 34 points, but otherwise, we'll see. But curious, Mac doesn't seem to have anything incredible. He actually would have
Well,
had
he has
ZITI.
Zin, yeah. I mean, he has GI, Zin. I think that's going to go down immediately. And Mac has to be very careful with how much time he has available. So I'm not surprised that he's just doing that and moving on.
Yeah, so Zen's going to come down, keep Mac in range. We're hearing from our production team that they keep dropping internet in the playing room, which is causing our score and clock widgets to go out over and over. So I'll do my best to keep y'all updated on that. But Zen, because it scores so well, actually puts Mac at just a 7-point deficit. 308 to 315 now. And Ken missing again on his fishes. He has to be a little frustrated holding EINRS and missing bingos consistently.
I know. At what point do you just say, I don't think I want to do this anymore?
Right, right. I really think that that 2-point play of NO is what's costing him huge here, as you know, EEINRS looks good, but it's not.
But
It's really not
yeah,
that
he
good.
really needed to play just one. He needed to play that E, I think.
And Mac picking up the Q and the blank, so now he will almost
Oh,
have
wow.
a
He has the
huge
U.
bingo next turn. That is a huge swing of events in a game where I had almost written Mac off.
Really
He
had.
might have a chance to get back in this game. He has a bingo through that E in Cut It. I won't spoil it again. I know that the crowd likes to search for things, uh, but sometimes they also like to spoil it in chat. So anyway, he'll have a bingo through that E if it stays open. Ken definitely with the big choice to make now. Am I going to continue fishing or maybe play a little bit longer? He could play Rinser and Branks, blow it all up, score 26 points, kind of tighten up the board a
Ooh.
lot. Or he could fish. And then if he fishes, where is he going to fish? He'll almost certainly play RN somewhere. But will he play URN or run through the U in
Or
outro? Or will
maybe
he play
RIN, maybe making REID and RIN, perhaps? I don't know. It feels like it's so dangerous, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't
You
think he's
have
going
to
to
know that the
open the
blank is
board here.
out, you know that the Q is out. I mean, uh, this is tough. This is tough for Ken. I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe just go for points now at this point because he sees that Mac is only 7 points behind him. Perhaps, uh, perhaps just going for points.
Yeah, in this situation, I think I would play Rinser. Just keep it tight. It's very hard for
Right.
my opponent to bingo back, but I also think I would never have put myself in this position. I would have tried to score a little bit more. This is blowing a game 101. Get a lead and then get caught up fishing as your opponent catches up. It's a
Okay.
very volatile
To be
strategy.
fair, to be fair, fishing is addictive. Okay, like once you see your tiles are RINSE, it's so hard to stop fishing. It is so hard because you think, okay, the next time, the next time, the next time, the next time. And I am so guilty of just getting addicted to fishing. And I think at this point, I've seen some top players mention that what they'll usually do is they'll consider the equity loss here. So if you are playing something for 3 points and you're keeping RINSE, what does that equal to? So 3 plus whatever you're keeping on your back. So what does that value equal to? And then you have to make that decision. In this case, I think perhaps even a Rin would have been better because the valuation would have been better. But personally, I would have liked Rinse. I would have liked to just keep scoring.
Yeah, wow. So this is a back and forwards game for sure. Ken electing to play Earn, another 6-point play. Mac almost certainly to play Petanque here. I'm not seeing any other bingos available for him.
I
And
don't
then,
know if he has any other.
yeah, he doesn't seem to have any. There are, I'll point out, 14 unseen to Mac. So 7 in the bag. If he plays Petanque and then Ken bingos back after fishing ruthlessly for several turns, Mac will immediately lose, as Ken will bingo out, catch all of the letters on Mac's rack, get those points doubled, and win the game. Now, Petanque is a reasonably defensive bingo. It's hard for Ken to bingo back, given what it does to the board. But Mac is going to take his time and make sure he does indeed want to bingo. A play like Queen through the E and cut it scores 48. It retains the blank. It's hard to lose after that as well. Even if Ken bingos, you get a chance to respond. You're holding a blank. Unseen to him is an incredible pool now. I'll put it in the chat. AAEEIINRSST So you can assume Ken probably not sitting on WWY after his like routine fishing. He's got at least 5 1 pointers, but maybe he picked up a W or a Y. I don't know. It's a tricky situation. Matt taking a little bit of a risk, but I think it's one you have to take, and you just pray I don't get bingoed back on and I win this game. So Petanque coming down, Ken with R signs on his rack. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere. The bag is now empty. AEITWWY is what Mac is going to pick up as he goes ahead 392 to 321. And Ken's not going to have a way to win this game after all that. So it looks like Mac is on hold. Ken has to decide. I think he knows this game is over if Petanque is a word. So he's going to take a shot and challenge it to try to win the game. And wow, Mac is a stolen one away here where I thought he was all but dead. He puts on a clinic and comes back, gets a huge draw, Q blank into ANTU, and is going to sneak this one out in round one of the Scrabble Players Championship. Wow. I'll note that players they hate losing challenges, but this is something I like to see from players. Even if you're 90% sure a word is valid, if it costs you the game, throw a challenge at it. Why not? Because the worst you could do is blow the game by not challenging a word. So I used to approach challenges more as a 50-50 decision. Am I more or less than 50% sure this is a word? If I'm less than 50%, if I've never seen it, I'll challenge. Otherwise, I won't. And no, there's a lot more situational awareness to it. It's more a math decision. So good choice by Ken there. You never want to lose a challenge. He probably thought this was a word, but yeah, and I'm sure he knows as he was holding that play, he looked, I don't have anywhere to play R signs. I'm not bingoing out. The game is over. So he has to challenge, and that's what he does. Mac going to drop down WYTE now after the lost turn from Ken. Ken will get to make one play, and then I'm sure Mac will go out next turn. But White, 45 points for him, puts Mac ahead 437 to 321. And Mac is going to end up with about a 100-point victory in a game that, just up two or three turns ago, he seemed dead. Again, I want to point out it is so hard to play on stream. It is so hard. You get in your own head. I have made some horrendous mistakes that I would not make anywhere else. But at the same time, for Ken, I definitely think he could have closed the door on this one and failed to do so. And Mac showing why he's a number one player in North America, casually taking a sip of his drink and stealing away a game that he had almost no business winning. Yeah, memorization of thousands and thousands of words from all of the players in this expert division for sure. Countless hours into this game. But every decision matters. You're always trying to twist that variance in your favor. This is not a game like chess where it is all skill. This is a game a lot closer to poker where there is a lot of luck, but you just do your best to harness that luck in your flavor or in your favor. There's a ton of overlap between competitive poker players and competitive Scrabble players, and you can see exactly why in games like this. So we're going to see resins come down. Some people may say, why would you put that extra S at the end? Well, you know Mack is going to go out next turn. So go ahead and just score as many as you can, get as much off your rack as you can. Ken actually had the opportunity to block both of Mack's outplays. He had WADI in 2 spots, but Ken could have played NEAP down to that blank P and knocked both of the Wadi plays out at once. That's actually the best end game for him. But resins is fine in a game. I'd be trying to walk away from the table as quickly as possible here, as I'd be very mad at myself for letting this game get away from me. Yeah, yeah. Mac, I'm sure saying to Ken, I'm so surprised you didn't bingo after you fished 3 turns in a row. I got so lucky that you missed. And he has to acknowledge he was lucky, but at the same time, Ken shouldn't have needed to get unlucky to lose this game. But he put himself in that situation, and that's what happened. Wow. Well, that was a cool. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think both players will go back and look at this game in hindsight and think about things. Mac, that curious exchange a few turns ago, and the pitch turn, I think, were two that were really hard that probably deserve some consideration and thought afterwards. And then Ken, I think, several turns that were difficult, hard to think about. So yeah, but what an interesting game. A great moment for Mac in a game where he got no S's and no blank until his last draw, still managing to eke out not even eke out. I mean, a commanding victory. 105 points was the final margin of victory. A great omen from a top player, and I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Mac on the stream as this tournament progresses. Perhaps even in the finals. No one will be surprised to see him there. Absolutely. We'll see some high level Scrabble the rest of today, tomorrow, and the following 3 days. Don't go anywhere. We are going to cut to a short intermission. The rest of the morning session, so the next 3 games, we will switch over to the CSW or International Lexicon, and we will be back with more NWL play for the afternoon session starting at 3 Pacific time. That'd be 6 Eastern time. So for that, we're going to cut away. Nits, Chagti, and Matt Canik are your commentators. We'll cut to a brief intermission. Don't go anywhere. Keep the chat popping, and we will be back shortly with more Scrabble action.